The cops were just like, put down the squirrel, step away from the squirrel. They were going crazy. It's just hi. Welcome to the JIB. This bi-weekly podcast is about the many and varied schemes of the many and varied, but it's not, because this is a Jib Jabs.
Is it?
Yeah.
Shit.
I mean, I wanted to make it like a regular podcast, but then I think there's no real connection to the FBI or the CIA here.
But there is. Up for this?
Yeah, sorry. As we are recording, yesterday, the US has bombed Iran. They bombed 3 sites, which they say are nuclear bomb preparation sites. They might be, I don't know, but there's no evidence for it. Exactly, yeah. So yeah, and we're all terrified of Iran now because they might be working on a nuclear weapon.
Might be.
But this is about a man, one guy, and his name is Mordechai Vanunu.
Ooh.
And you may have you heard? I assume you've heard of Mordechai Vanunu.
Mordechai Vanunu?
Fantastic.
No,
you have not. Good.
No.
A lot of people would have, a lot more than I'd say any of the usual people we talk about. So I'm going to talk about this guy, and we're going to have to deal with it. So we also don't need the "Hi, my name is" bit, I guess, because we're not doing that.
Oh,
are you drinking Guinness?
Hi, my name is Seamus. I'll be the one drinking pints during this episode.
We're doing it. Okay, fine. My name's Barry, and hi. Anyway. We're here to talk about Mordechai Vanunu because we've heard a lot about the Iranian hypothetical nuclear program, and we don't hear much about the Israeli. Is there even a nuclear program? Right?
The best joke. There are tons of jokes going out there. The best joke I've seen was the ancient hieroglyphics that were found in ancient Palestine that was recently decoded. That Iran is months away from having nuclear explosions. Right?
Yeah, that's the joke, right?
Yeah.
That's the joke right there. So let's, do you want to get into it?
Yeah.
Without further ado. Oh, there's always some more ado. I always have a bit of ado ready, but we're going to crack into it. Mordechai Vanunu was born on October 13, 1954 in Marrakesh, Morocco. October 13 is also my birthday.
Oh.
And it is the birthday of at least one of my ex-wives.
That's handy. I bet that made things a lot easier for you.
It certainly did. It certainly did. He was born in Morocco into a Sephardic Jewish family who lived in the Mellah. What is your question?
I don't have a question.
What is the Mellah?
Oh. What's the Mellah, Barry?
A Mellah is a special area set aside for Jews to live in, which was more or less peculiar to Morocco. It was peculiar because segregation was not the rule. It wasn't kind of something they did in Islamic countries. In European countries, a lot of them had ghettos and there were cities and so on, but there wasn't really something that happened in Islamic countries. The Jews were segregated politically, but not really physically.
Sorry, what year was this again?
He was born in 1954.
Okay.
The Mellahs kicked up pretty much as soon as the Arabs hit Morocco.
Okay.
The Mellahs of Morocco almost certainly sprung up as an effort to deal with the sudden influx of Jews around 1500 as the Spanish Inquisition liquidated the entire Sephardic Jewish population of Spain, which they did. The Christians came back and those Jews were saying, Jesus, can we please have the Muslims back? I can guarantee you, as the last of them was flung off into the sea in Gibraltar.
Would that be considered a pogrom at that point?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
I mean, it's just like every time you're reading something about history, through the ages, it's like, okay, this pogrom, that pogrom, like almost every region had a pogrom. So the
whole of Spain was liquidated of its Jewish population, and the Jews in Spain were Sephardic Jews. Muslim countries in general historically have a much better history of the treatment of Jews than Christian countries. They're still not. There's things the Jews were not allowed to do, but they weren't hunted through the streets much. As much as they were in Christian countries.
Fair.
The Christian countries really only started to care about Jews after 1945.
Did something happen in 1945?
Yeah, it's nothing to do with this episode, so I'm not going to talk about it.
Okay.
Mordechai's parents were Orthodox Jews, and he attended Cheder, a Jewish elementary school, which will tell you how the Muslims are okay with Jews if they're allowing them to set up their own schools and so on. There's this idea, I think, that Muslims hate Jews and they want to be killing them all the time and they shut them down. And it's not true at all. You're mistaking them for Christians. In 1963, After 1945, it's a different story. After 1948, in particular, the Muslims took a very much harsher attitude to Jews. In 1963, Mordechai's parents sold up and moved to Israel. Since 1949, the control of Jewish immigration from Morocco to Israel had moved from the occupying French government, the Vichy regime as they call it, to a secret Israeli program called Kadima. They operated on, because everything in Israeli is secret, they operated under the disguise of libraries and specifically targeted Jews in poor areas of Moroccan cities with stories of limitless opportunity, even though these people would overwhelmingly remain poor as soon as they landed in Israel. The program was so successful that by 1951, another program developed alongside it called Selexia, which actively discriminated against Moroccan Jews unable to pay for their own immigration, families without a breadwinner in the ages of 18 to 45, men of military age, and families with a member in need of medical care. Professor of Jewish history Norman Stillman called Selexia a draconian and frequently cruel policy. It was at least partly motivated by the racism of the dominant Ashkenazi Jewish power structure in Israel against Sephardic and Mizrahi Jews. Even today, the phrase Morocco Sakin, which means Moroccan knife, is a racist term of abuse for Moroccan immigrants today.
Well, yeah, something with knife in it sounds a little,
Oh, yeah, they're saying they're street criminals and all this kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the whole myth of the Israelis taking in all the Jews from the world and so on, in the case of Morocco at least, was total horse shit. And also, again, they will tell you that all the Jews are equal in Israel. There's enormous racism, intra-Jew racism, but we'll talk about that in a second.
Yeah.
This is also related to Mordechai Vanunu. Now is a good time to explain the different type of Jews in a very rough and general way, right? Now, this is rough and general, meaning there will be exceptions and so on, but I got in trouble because I was in a Facebook group, an archaeology face group, for saying these things. These things are true, but they said, oh, you can't say this and you can't. Zionists do not want you to talk about any of this because it unsettles the project, right? But here we go.
You in a Facebook group getting in trouble? No.
Well, this was an archaeology group, nothing to do with. I was talking about the archaeology of Israel. It doesn't matter. Anyway, Israel has some of the best archaeologists in the world and it has some of the best archaeological sites in the world. And I'm going to leave it there because Sephardic Jews are the parts of the diaspora that ended up in Spain. Diaspora is the Jews that left when the Roman Empire smashed them to pieces in around 60 AD. That's how far back we're talking. Sephardic Jews were parts of the diaspora that ended up in Spain and later had to leave because of the Spanish Inquisition. They ended up in places like Italy and Greece, and they mostly look North Mediterranean, meaning Spanish or Italian or Greek. They look like those people, right?
Right.
Mizrahi Jews are Jews who ended up in North Africa and other Muslim countries. They mostly look Arab, because they kind of are Arabs. I'm not allowed to say that out loud, of course, because that's anti-Semitic. Anyway, wait till you see the next bit. Ashkenazi Jews are the Jews of the diaspora who ended up in Central Europe, and they mostly look white, which, I mean, they just do. There are many other groupings. For instance, Beta Israel ended up in Ethiopia, and they mostly look black. And of course, I've told you this before, but when the Beta Israel was discovered, the rabbis arranged for the Israeli government to hoof the entire population by airplane from Ethiopia into Israel. And as soon as they landed, all of the women, the black women, were pretty much sterilized without their consent.
Jesus Christ.
So yeah, racism. Anyway, Bene Israel are the Jews of the diaspora who ended up in India, and they mostly look Indian, and so on. And there's a whole thing here about racism, but I'm not getting into it. I'll just point out that despite the fact that there are these many different types of Jews, and despite the fact that Ashkenazi Jews, the white ones, only make up under 30% of the population, every single prime minister of Israel since the dawn of the state has been Ashkenazi.
Yeah.
And the vast majority of the presidents have been Ashkenazi. There's been two who weren't.
Are you going to talk about the current prime minister and his feelings on that?
No.
Because he is very, very racist when it comes to that. Whenever his brother died, he thought a particular sect of Arabs had killed him. And whenever he found out it was a lighter-skinned race, he was less concerned.
Yeah.
He's still upset, but that's how ingrained the racism is with the Netanyahu's.
Yeah. That's very common at the top levels of Israeli society. Yeah. They do not see all Jews as equal.
Yeah, it's fucked up.
I mean, we know they don't see Arabs as equal, but they do not even see Jews are categorized according to their color and their place of origin and so on.
Yeah, they
Ashkenazi are at the top of the power structure.
Arabs as being human or even near.
They're vermin.
Yeah.
They need to be wiped out like rats.
Yeah. Their words.
Yeah,
So,
and I don't.
yeah.
Obviously, I'm okay with that. That's not this bit that last bit I was talking about the different types of Jews, and not specifically about Mordechai Vanunu. It's just interesting. When they arrived in Israel, they were assigned to Beersheba, which was a rundown desert settlement at that stage. And Beersheba is now, a few days ago, the Iranians hit it. It's now a tech hub, and they produce a lot
Okay.
of military technology in Beersheba. But back then, it
Kind
was
of like
nothing.
Silicon Valley kind of
Yeah,
ish, or is it
just
more?
for the
Okay.
army.
Okay.
Yeah. Which was a rundown settlement at that stage. During their first year in Israel, the family lived in a small wooden hut without electricity. Like most Israelis, Mordechai served in the IDF, and after his service, he got a job as a nuclear technician at the Dimona reactor in Israel's Negev desert.
Sorry to
Um,
keep interrupting you, but whenever you say you served, isn't that kind of like a conscription thing that you have to serve X amount of time?
they have conscription there, yeah.
Yeah.
There are ways out of it.
Okay.
And he could have, I guess he could, if his parents were Orthodox Jews and they took the religion seriously enough, he could find a way out of it.
Okay.
But
So
he
it's
decided to
based
go.
on faith, not on
Oh, it can be based
status.
on anything.
What's that?
There's a whole list of reasons why you don't have to serve.
Okay.
But
I just didn't know, like, if
most
it
people are
was,
conscripted. But if you don't apply in any of these categories, you will have to go.
is money an issue? I mean, is that a way of
I don't
getting
know. No,
out?
I don't think so. No.
Okay. Okay.
Also, if you refuse to serve and you don't qualify in any of the categories, exempt categories, you will be put in jail.
Okay.
And there are many, many cases. Israel must be the highest level of non-compliance of any country I've ever seen. There's
But I
so
mean,
many.
they're not alone in this, right? I mean, like the Soviet Union has done it, or Russia rather.
Yeah.
Ukraine is obviously doing that now, but I mean,
Yeah.
this is not something that's just
There's conscription is in South Korea as well.
Yeah.
After his service, he got a job as a nuclear technician at the Dimona reactor in Israel's Negev desert. Suspicions had been circulating for many years that this research center was not, as the Israelis claimed, and continue to claim, to, quote, broaden the basic knowledge in nuclear sciences and adjacent fields, and to provide the foundation for the practical and economic utilization of nuclear energy, end quote. And that quote is something I took from the Negev Nuclear Research Center today. You can go and look on that site today, and that's what they'll tell you is happening there. The center was definitely not, as the Israelis claimed before that, a textiles plant. After all, David Ben Gurion, Israel's first prime minister, had said, quote, what Einstein, Oppenheimer, and Teller, the three of them are Jews, made for the United States, could also be done by scientists in Israel for their own people, end quote. The site was and remains highly restricted, and staff are required to maintain strict secrecy about their activities. In 1960, Chapman Pincher, that's back in the days when you could have a first name Chapman Pincher wrote in the Daily Express, British and American intelligence authorities believe that the Israelis are well on the way to building their first experimental nuclear bomb. In 1961, MI6 determined that the nature of the plant being built in Dimona can only mean that Israel intends to produce nuclear weapons. The British had other information leading them to this conclusion, namely that they themselves made hundreds of secret shipments of uranium-235, plutonium, and highly enriched lithium-6 to Israel.
That's a fun way to debunk it.
Yeah.
to solve it. Hey, wonder if they have nuclear bombs. Well, you know what? It looks like over here we actually send them the materials. Oh, wow, shit. Okay. Is that why they're asking for it? They said it was textiles. Yeah. I thought they were just, wanting to have a glow-in-the-dark sweater. I didn't know,
Tritium,
yeah.
They also sold 25 tons of deuterium in 1958 to a Norwegian company, which it was finally revealed in 2006 the British at the time knew was a front for the Israeli government.
Well, yeah, because what are the Norwegians going to do with that? Right? I mean...
Deuterium. I didn't have a nuclear program in 1958, I know that.
I don't think so. So no offense to our Norwegian friends, but
Yeah. This same 2006 Foreign Office statement revealed that 2 years later, in 1961, the British government asked for their deuterium back again due to increasing concern about its end use.
Uh-huh. How'd that go?
Poorly. That's the Israelis. In 1965, a U.S. company...
wait a minute. Did they ask the Norwegians for it back, or they asked the Israelis for it back?
The Norwegians.
Oh, okay. So the Norwegians like, we don't have it. I don't know what happened to it.
No, they knew the Israelis had it.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying.
So they went to the Shell company in Norway. And in 1965, a U.S. company, Nuclear Materials and Equipment Corporation, NUMEC, in Pennsylvania, you know where that is, lost around 100 kilograms of highly enriched uranium.
Lost. That's
100 kilograms
what year is this?
of uranium. 1965.
You think people would be paying a little bit of attention to uranium, especially
That's a
around
James Bond
that
movie right
point?
there, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean that. Why is that something I don't know about? Jesus.
Yeah. In 1960s, if you had that kind of thing that happened in a James Bond movie, 100
Yeah,
kilograms of highly, you'd expect that who did it would be the bad guy with one wonky eye.
yeah, or
But
Doctor No with the metal hands and all
in
that.
real
Yeah,
life,
yeah,
it's the
yeah.
Zionists. This was called the Apollo Affair. The
Oh, that's
FBI
cute.
the FBI investigated the president of NUMEC, Zalman Shapiro, a
Mm.
Zionist who had business interests in Israel and had regular
What?
meetings with senior Israeli officials in his home. In 1976, a CIA briefing memo indicated that they thought the uranium went to Israel.
Oh,
The CIA, the Atomic Energy Commission, and the
wait,
nuclear.
wait. So 76. That's like 11 years later.
Yes.
It took them
Thank
that
you for
long to
pointing
figure out
that out.
where it went to. Okay, okay.
The
Jesus
CIA, yeah.
Christ.
The CIA, the Atomic Energy Commission, and the Nuclear Regulatory Commission all investigated but could not prove that Shapiro had done anything illegal. In
Right.
2009, the NRC, the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, the NRC stated after a specific request to clear Shapiro, the NRC does not have information that would allow us to unequivocally conclude that nuclear material was not diverted from the site. In other words, they refused to clear him. They just don't have enough evidence to convict him of anything,
Oh,
right?
I literally just watched a documentary, which I'm going to talk to you about when we
Go
go
ahead.
off air, about a guy who it's all circumstantial evidence that the FBI arrested and publicly ruined, and this guy has a lot more, and they're doing
Well,
nothing to him. The
yeah.
Shapiro guy. It's
Yeah.
like, are you fucking kidding me? Okay, whatever.
They
Yeah,
couldn't connect him to it, but they kind of knew he did.
sure. Yeah, but also, do you not think that if it was, say, Iran or Iraq
He'd
instead
be
of
deported.
Israel, it would be a totally different situation? Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
In the late 1960s, by the way, in the middle of the 1960s, the Americans are they're not as close to Israel as they are now.
No, because
They're kind of still waiting to see how they land.
well, what year was the Liberty? Was that late 50s? The
I don't know.
USS Liberty, you know what I'm talking about, right?
Yes, I know what you're talking about,
Okay.
but I don't know what year it was.
I'll Google that way. There you go on.
Thanks. In the late 1960s, the Americans more or less insisted, and there was a lot of tension between the Americans and the Israelis, as I said, particularly after the
1967.
there you go.
So
Yeah.
2 years after that. So you
Yeah.
would think, what the fuck?
After the Suez Crisis, there was a lot of tension. In the late 1960s, the Americans more or less insisted on inspections of the Negev Research Center. The Israelis refused to allow the global agency in charge of everyone's nuclear inspections, the International Atomic Energy Agency, but they allowed a team of American inspectors to assess the site. Okay, now here, what we have here is a graph of Russia's strategic nuclear warheads. Now, if you have a nuclear program, I understand if you want to keep it secret. But on the other hand, the International Atomic Energy Agency and the Non-Proliferation Treaty demand that you explain yourself on at least a basic level to everybody else so people know what's going on. So Russia will be notoriously uncooperative with any of these international agreements. And
Right.
despite that, we still have all this information that the Russians gave us. You can see how many... Oh, fuck me. What's going on behind the scenes?
Nothing.
Anyway, yeah, you can see they have how many nukes they have, how many are intercontinental ballistic missiles, how many are submarine based, how many are air launched. We have all that information, and the Russians know we have that, and that's all legit, right? That's just to explain to you what the International Atomic Energy Agency does. The Russians will let those guys into all their facilities with zero notice, and this is the information that they have. So even the Russians will do this, and we know the Russians are not really keen to play ball with anybody, right?
Sure.
This is the kind of information that's people are entitled to have. What we're not entitled to have, I guess, is to know exactly where every submarine is and where exactly each nuclear submarine is.
Oh, yeah.
That's national security. I wouldn't expect the Americans to say that either.
No.
But the Israelis allowed a team of American inspectors, not the International Atomic Agency. The Israelis also insisted on having advance notice of all inspections and control over which parts of the site could be inspected.
Oh, well, that's kind of convenient.
The advance notice thing, of course. Anyway, despite these restrictions, which render any inspections useless, the inspectors made these points in a declassified document to President LBJ, Lyndon Johnson. Right? So despite all this, the inspectors made these points. Despite the fact that they didn't have the any information, right? What they saw led them to believe, one, Israel concealed the existence of the Dimona reactor from us for about 2 years. This is literally what happened to the thing in President Johnson. Two, Israeli officials did not allow adequate time for thorough inspection of the Dimona site and arranged no visits to sites of projected related facilities. Three, Israeli officials ruled questions about procurement of uranium from abroad outside the scope of the visit and suggested taking them through normal diplomatic channels, which of course means we're not going to tell you. Four, Israel is acquiring missiles from France designed to accommodate high explosive or nuclear warheads. And five, public and private statements by Israeli officials suggest military planning that includes the use of nuclear weapons.
Okay, then.
This committee, this group of Americans that were sent out to do the useless job, also recommended that Israel immediately extend IAEA, meaning the Atomic Commission, safeguards to allow all Israeli nuclear facilities. Israel signed up to the IAEA in 1957 when they started, but they refused. In other words, they were a founding member of the IAEA when they started, but they refused to abide by any of those conditions. And that they signed the document, but they didn't follow through with any of the things that the document said. As of 2025, Israel has still not signed up to the Non-Proliferation Treaty, as every other country has. Well, most of them. Israel, along with the IAEA, they've signed up to it, but they don't do anything. Israel, the IAEA, the International Atomic Energy Agency, IAEA. Okay. Israel, along with India, Pakistan, and for some reason South Sudan, have never signed the related Non-Proliferation Treaty, which binds signatories to pursue nuclear disarmament aimed at the ultimate elimination of their nuclear arsenals.
Why do you think South Sudan? That's an odd inclusion.
I don't know. I think I don't know what South Sudan's doing. Okay. I know what India and Pakistan are doing.
Yeah.
But America
That's
and
scary
Russia,
enough.
In the defense of America and Russia, they have signed this treaty, and we have seen from both of those countries, we've seen a willingness to reduce their nuclear stockpiles down through the years. They have decommissioned nuclear weapons, both of those countries, and they have done some work on that, right? So that's SALT. You remember the SALT talks?
Yeah.
They were successful, to a certain level. Most sources agree that Israel had operational nuclear weapons by the Six-Day War in 1967. During the Six-Day War, an Israeli missile shot down their own Israeli Air Force fighter jet because it had inadvertently flown over Dimona.
Wow.
So that's how seriously they took it. Always first with the news, a 1968 CIA report declassified in 2009 said India and Israel might undertake a nuclear weapons program in the next several years. Also in 1968, Israel bought 200 tons of yellow cake uranium from a Belgian company operating in the Democratic Republic of Congo.
Oh my God.
So if you want to know more about what's going on in Congo, we have an episode called Patrice Lumumba.
Yeah.
It's
R.I.P.
fun and games.
R.I.P. to a real one, man.
Yeah. At this time, the Israelis, instead of pretending to be a Norwegian company, they pretended to be an Italian company to buy 200 tons of yellow cake uranium. Unfortunately, the Italian company actually existed and had no idea where the 200 tons of yellow cake uranium went. It had been stolen by the Israelis. 200 tons of yellow cake uranium is enough to keep the reactor at Dimona going for 10 years.
Wow.
Now, here we go. Here's the answer to your question. Israel has always maintained a policy of what we call in the geopolitics community deliberate ambiguity. Neither confirming nor denying they have nuclear weapons. The problem here, of course, is that the only point to having nuclear weapons is to act as a deterrent.
Yeah.
But advertising that deterrent comes with diplomatic consequences that Israel refuses to suffer. In other words, they want all the benefits but take none of the responsibility of a nuclear program. They're weak. It's just a weak thing to do. A cynical person might add that there is a US law preventing them from preventing the US from directly funding any country that proliferates weapons of mass destruction. Israel gets billions of dollars a year of military aid from the US, which is never questioned by anyone who matters. They would be serious problems about stopping all that money if they said they had a nuclear program. Nevertheless, the official line was, and probably will always be, and this is the quote that they always come out with: "We will not be the first country to introduce nuclear weapons to the Middle East." Right?
Yeah.
That's the official line. And now we don't have a top 10, we don't have an ad, but I wrote a top 5 instead. These are the top 5 quotes of Israeli officials who accidentally dropped the ball on the secret nuclear program. Right? In 1981, after the destruction of Iraq in 1981 was in the middle of a war, but anyway, after the destruction of Iraq's Osirak reactor, former Defense and Foreign Minister Moshe Dayan told the New York Times, "We do have the capacity to produce nuclear weapons." In 1990, what?
I said, oopsie. Well, of course, you
Yeah.
could probably do that after all these.
Sure, you can. In 1998, at a press conference in Jordan, then Foreign Minister Shimon Peres said that Israel had built a nuclear option not in order to have Hiroshima, but in Oslo. You have to say, oopsie.
Sorry, oopsie.
In 2006, Prime Minister Ehud Olmert said, Iran openly, explicitly, and publicly threatens to wipe Israel off the map. Can you say that this is the same level when they are aspiring to have nuclear weapons as America, France, Israel, and Russia? Yeah, ding dong.
Yeah.
Well, Olmert was Prime Minister. Representatives of both the Likud and Moretz political parties asked him to resign as a result of saying that. And Mordechai Vanunu, who we're going to talk about, was certain that the mistake was intentional. In a later interview on German television, Olmert said, we will not be the first country to introduce nuclear weapons to the Middle East. In 2008, Jimmy Carter, who, like all American presidents since 1948, could be considered a high-ranking member of the Israeli government, said,
Sorry.
often you get the jokes. The
Start that one over. That's just too good.
In 2008,
Sorry, I left one too hard. Oh, that's chef's kiss. That's great. Go on.
In 2008, Jimmy Carter, who, like all American presidents, could be considered a high-ranking member of the Israeli government, said, the US has more than 12,000 nuclear weapons. The Soviet Union, meaning Russia, has about the same. Yeah. Great Britain and France have several hundred, and Israel has 150 or more. Yeah.
Wow.
And this is the last one. Asked in a radio interview in 2023 about a hypothetical nuclear option in Gaza, Government Minister Amihai Eliyahu had replied, that's one way. Eliyahu said in a social media post, it is clear to anyone who is sensible that the nuclear remark was metaphorical. So I guess I'm not sensible.
One of our sitting senators recently said as much, saying that they should...
They have a nuclear program.
Yeah, he's a representative from Florida. I can't remember his name. He also put in a bill that made it okay to run over protesters and stand in the road.
Oh, he's a special one then.
Oh, there's a lot of speciality with this motherfucker. Yeah,
we're going to go back to Vanunu.
Piece of shit.
Yeah, we're going back to Vanunu. Mordechai, Vanunu, that you do to me. Mordechai signed a contract forbidding disclosure of sensitive security materials and had to promise not to visit any Arab or communist countries for 5 years after his employment at the facility ended.
He had to sign this, or is this what he made?
He had to sign this.
Okay.
Everybody at Dimona signed this.
Okay.
Everybody at the Negev Nuclear Research Center at Dimona. He passed various checks and did so well in the entrance exams that he was employed as a nuclear plant technician and shift manager in February 1977. He worked there until 1985. During his time at Dimona, Vanunu became increasingly disillusioned with Israel's policies, particularly with the Palestinians. As did we all, I'm sure. As soon as I started reading more than one book, I guess. How did you find out about the Palestinian problem? How did you break out of the U.S. media bubble?
I think it was Hitchens, actually. I think.
Oh, okay.
I think so. I think it was
Thanks,
Hitchens.
Christopher.
Yeah.
Thanks, Hitch. Vanunu opposed the 1982 Lebanon War, and when he was called up to serve in that war as a reserve soldier, he refused to perform field tasks and instead worked in the kitchen.
Oh.
He developed a particular resentment for the dominance of Israeli society by Ashkenazi Jews, the white ones, if you recall, and discrimination against Sephardi and Mizrahi Jews. He felt that he was looked down on by those who ran the Dimona facility due to his Moroccan heritage. And the fact that he was Moroccan, it wasn't even heritage, he's a Moroccan guy. In 1984, he was questioned by the Dimona head of security and a lawyer who was probably from Shin Bet. Shin Bet is the internal security agency in charge of all the tortures. He was let off with a warning about divulging any unauthorized information. His security files said he had left-wing and pro-Arab beliefs.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In 1985, Vanunu was dismissed from his position during a round of layoffs. Before leaving the facility, however, because he's a real one, he covertly took many photographs of the top-secret underground areas below the Dimona complex. That's one of the photographs, the real-life photographs that Vanunu took. That is one of the control rooms, and we have another one rolling up, kind of a yellowy one. That's it. That is, I don't know anything about it, but that apparently is a very damning photo of a bunch of nuclear material just sitting underneath Dimona. that the Israelis aren't supposed to have, right? He did a lot of traveling after he got fired. The firing was apparently nothing to do with anything. He just was part of it. It was just unfortunate. He did a lot of traveling. He ended up in Australia and converted to Christianity.
Okay.
Also in Australia.
That's interesting.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? Also in Australia, he met some journalists, and one of them, Peter Hunam, convinced him to let the Sunday Times publish his story of the photographs.
Which publication?
The Sunday Times.
Okay.
They travelled to Britain to present their findings to the editorial team of the Sunday Times. So they went from Australia to London. They were very careful. The Sunday Times editorial team were very careful and had the story verified by many independent experts on nuclear materials and also by a bunch of Israelis and people who knew Vanunu personally in Israel. These experts determined that the information Vanunu had, backed up by some pretty eye-watering photographs, two of which we've just seen, indicated that Israelis had enough weapons-grade plutonium for around 150 nuclear weapons, which, because they are Zionists, means that they definitely had around 150 nuclear weapons.
Which is the same? Is that the same number that was quoted just a minute ago? Okay.
It varies. We don't know how many they have.
Yeah,
yeah.
Twice that by now.
No, it's about 150.
Okay.
I'd be very surprised if they had more than 200. That's possible, because we don't know. All these weapons are all unaccounted for, all completely secret, and all without any international oversight of any kind. The paper then approached...
some countries would be invaded for that.
Or bombed.
Just kind of weird,
But the Israelis are different because they're like us. And they're also fighting against the bad guys, the Muslims. They look white. And they're fighting against the bad guys. The Muslims are the bad guys, remember?
Right. Oh, I forgot
those
the script.
Tricksy Arabs. You can't turn your back on an Arab or a Muslim.
Except whenever we buddy up to them to fight other Arabs or other white guys we don't like, right? So
look, Seamus, did you not see? Do you not know that these Muslims hate women?
Oh, of course. Yeah.
If that doesn't tell you if that doesn't,
they won't let women. Whenever a woman dies and they're brain dead, they will force them to deliver the stillborn child. Oh no, that happened in Georgia and here.
Abortion is fine in Islam, by the way. There's no problem with abortion in Islam.
It's just weird, yeah. Okay.
Also, Iran has I think it's maybe apart from China, no, including China, Iran has the highest percentage of female graduates from university in any country in the world.
Yeah, and it's weird. Whenever I see pictures
there, 70%.
They all don't have to wear that head thing that I'm being told that they had to wear. It's like I've been lied to all this time. It's
they
really
do
bizarre.
The Taliban hates women. That's for fucking sure.
Yeah. Oh, but they're on our side.
Yeah.
Did you miss the memo? They're on our side. Can't talk bad about Taliban now. So yeah.
So these guys, the paper, the Sunday Times, then approached the Israeli embassy for comment, as I guess the editorial would insist that they have to do.
Okay.
The Israelis denied everything, but it was panic fucking stations in Mossad. Shimon Peres ordered Mossad to bring the son of a bitch back here. A plan was put immediately into place to deal with the Vanunu problem. And unusually for Mossad, the plan was all right. The plan was okay, logistically speaking. The first problem was getting him out of England, because the Israelis did not want to jeopardize their positive working relationship with the UK. Right? What do you think of her?
Oh.
No, she's all right. She's not unattractive.
Yes, please.
Yeah. And the next one. Right? They sent a covert Mossad agent named Cheryl Hanine, that's her, who moved from Florida to Israel as a teenager and was recruited after doing very well on some IDF entrance exams.
Let me guess. Honeypot.
Correct.
Oh, yeah. I'd be dead.
Oh, yeah.
I would be dead.
I'll tell you where all the stuff is. She was sent to London under the name of her sister-in-law, Cynthia Hanine, and she called herself Cindy, posing as a tourist and a trainee beautician from Florida. Vanunu, at this point, was scared and vulnerable, waiting for the publication of the story. He was basically shitting himself. He was being bounced around from rural retreats to random London hotel rooms under various false names for his own protection.
Is he doing this, or is, MI...
So the Times is doing it.
Oh, the Times themselves.
Nothing to do with MI6 or MI5. Nothing to do with it.
They're not doing anything to help this guy.
They didn't know. They were not aware of it. The only people who know now are Mossad and the Sunday Times.
Okay.
That's it. So the Sunday Times are bouncing him around, trying to protect him. He's very scared and he's very vulnerable. So, when you're vulnerable, you're you let these these toxic women destroy your life.
Yeah.
He was being bounced from rural retreats to random London hotel rooms under a false name for his own protection. However, I've seen a lot of evidence to suggest that Mossad knew where he was at all times. How lucky for him, in this vulnerable position, that he should meet an attractive American girl in Leicester Square who seemed to be very interested in him. As soon as
she comes across as an American.
She is American.
Okay, I missed that. Sorry.
She's a Mossad agent who's from Florida. She moved to Israel as a teenager.
Sorry. I was too focused on the picture and less on what you were saying. Yeah. Apologies.
Yeah, that's okay.
But, okay, so just two things. Okay,
yeah.
You would have to be super, super paranoid to be around anybody. And how do you not... Again, I guess, I don't know. What were we, the 70s at this point? Or are we in the 80s?
This was 1986.
Okay, so, yeah, I think by now you've probably seen enough movies to know about the honeypot thing, so... And he's not a dumb guy. Maybe he's just dumb.
He was vulnerable and scared.
Yeah, I don't know. But also, what is there a reason why him and the Times didn't reach out to the British government? Was it that they were paranoid that the UK government might turn him over to Israeli? You know,
as far as they were concerned, he was a hot story they were working on.
Okay.
They didn't feel any need to report him to anyone.
Okay, but I mean, if he's scared and looking for help and protection,
that's
at that
standard
point, you know
source on hot story.
Okay, I don't
know. As soon as she invited him to her sister's apartment in Rome for a holiday, he eagerly agreed.
Uh-huh.
On the 30th of September, 1986.
Oh, in Rome.
In Rome, the Eternal City.
Oh, dude, come on.
Would you like to go to my sister's apartment in Rome? Yeah, sure.
Come on. Why would you leave the country? Nothing against Rome. I wouldn't care if it was Rome, Morocco,
he's technically
France.
a free man. He can do whatever he wants.
Yeah, but if you're scared and I think you sit and squat until you know the coast is clear.
Okay.
You definitely don't jump. I mean, yeah, again, she's tempting as all get out, but, man, I don't know. Well, I'm concerned for our boy. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, me too. The concern will be justified in the next paragraph.
Oh, no.
On the 30th, get rid of her now.
I don't want to get rid of her.
Get rid of her. On the 30th of September, 1986, as soon as they came off the flight, they got in a taxi to a pre-agreed location where Mossad agents beat the shit out of him and injected him with a paralyzing drug, carried him into a white van on a stretcher, drove him to the dock, put him on a speedboat, which took him to a Panamanian-registered ship waiting off the Italian coast in international waters.
Jesus Christ.
That plan was good. It was a fairly watertight plan. 5 days later, the Sunday Times printed the story, and we have a shot of the story. Look at that. Reveals the secrets of Israel's nuclear arsenal. Jeez, if they were shitting themselves 5 days ago, right?
You think they could have put that out before you got whatever?
They were still checking everything. That's a hot story. You want to get it right.
Yeah, but you keep your source alive. I
understand any reluctance to print that.
Oh,
right?
Fuck yeah, especially because it's Israel and you know how that rolls. But I mean, goddamn, keep your source safe, man.
That's their responsibility, and they fucked up.
Yeah, they did.
2 days after that...
he fucked up too, but sorry, go ahead.
Well, I guess there's a lot of fuck-ups involved, but I'm not going to... This guy's a real one, and I don't care. I'll defend this guy. 2 days after that, the ship carrying Vanunu landed in Israel, and he was sent to a Shin Bet secure facility for, and you can't see me, but I'm doing air quotes, questioning.
Uh-huh.
On 9th of November, the Israelis finally admitted they had had Mordechai Vanunu in custody. On the 21st of December, he was
I'm surprised they even admitted it, to be honest with you.
Because he went missing. And everybody knew where he was. On the 21st of December, he was taken to court for his arraignment. The Israelis refused to explain anything about his arrest other than that they broke no British laws, which turns out to be 100% true. Not a single British law was broken during that whole thing, if you remember how it happened, right?
Uh-huh.
He just left voluntarily and they hopped him in Italy. Italian laws were broken, but that's a separate issue. No one gives a fuck about Italy, right? The reason this story makes for a great podcast is contained in the next photo, because the visual aspect of it is wonderful. Vanunu was denied access to the media, but they were waiting for his arrival at court anyway. There was a scrum. He managed to write a message on his hand and show it out the window of the van as it entered the court complex. It's hard to make out the text there, as you can see, but it says this, if you can follow along at home. Vanunu M was hijacked in Rome, ITL 30.9.86, 2100, came to Rome by BA Fly 504. which means Vanunu Mordechai was hijacked in Rome, Italy on the 30th of September 1986 at 9 p.m., came to Rome by British Airways Flight 504. This gave reporters a lot of information they could use because nobody knew anything about the bit I just told you until this. So they started looking up shit. As he left the court later, there's another photo very similar.
So,
I like it.
So this would be also known as post-nut clarity. I believe.
No, there's more than one piece of evidence to indicate that there was no sexuality at all involved.
But I mean, obviously, he's kind of come to his senses.
Yeah. Now, as he left the court later, a reporter asked him where he was kidnapped. He shouted Italy before a guard physically restrained him to prevent him from speaking. So if you're one of our blind viewers, that's a photo of a guard physically restraining him from speaking, as you can see. And that's all quite tasty. From a visual point of view, it's kind of dramatic, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, again, this is so transparent as to what's going on. Which, I mean, look at what they're doing in Gaza now. I mean, and I'm not trying to shift gears, but I mean, they just are blatantly obvious of the deceit that they're doing.
Yeah.
It's insulting. It's insulting is what it is.
It's absolutely insulting that they blow up hospitals and schools and burn children to death and drop
and it's insulting on the part of the media that allow it to happen without being actually questioned and called out. It's a failure.
Just say the truth. Just tell the truth like this guy.
Yeah.
His actual trial began in August 1987 in secret. In the interim, he was held in a maximum security prison.
You mean after that, they decide, well, I guess we shouldn't do this thing in public for some reason?
Well, you know what? I kind of get... I won't hold that against the Israelis, in fairness to them, because it was a national security issue. He could have said anything in the trial that would blow up the whole thing. So I get that. The problem I have is not so much that it was held in secret. I'll just say that because everything the Zionists do is in secret. They're liars and cheaters. And in the interim, he was held in a maximum security prison and spent 23 hours a day in solitary confinement before his trial. He was charged with treason and 2 counts of aggravated espionage.
So wait a minute, 23 hours a day? So what do you get to do for the other hour? I mean...
I'm guessing exercise?
Wow, what a vacation. I mean, Jesus fucking Christ. I mean, that's fucking torture is what that is. That's fucking torture.
I'm led to understand it's torture.
Yes.
Yeah. As somebody with weapons-grade autism, I don't think it would really matter to me, but I understand for regular humans who are socialized normally, that would be torture. He was charged with treason and 2 counts of aggravated espionage. In 1999, after a legal battle, the Israeli government finally allowed transcripts of the trial to be published by Yedioth Ahronoth, the highest circulation Israeli daily newspaper. Yedioth Ahronoth means like the Daily News or something like that.
Okay,
right?
okay.
I'm mispronouncing it horrifically.
It's
the highest circulation Israeli daily newspaper anyway. They're not really left-wing or right-wing. They're just a paper that prints stuff.
They're still,
they got clips of it.
Still out today?
Yeah, it's still the highest. It's still the highest circulation Israeli newspaper. Yedioth Ahronoth.
That's weird. This is the first time I've ever heard of him.
I've known about it for a while.
Times of Israel and Haaretz or
Haaretz.
Haaretz, yeah.
Haaretz is the one I usually reference because it's the paper of record. Yedioth Ahronoth is not the paper of record. Haaretz is. Haaretz means the land.
Yeah.
Eretz means land, and Haaretz means the land. It's like it's like a short form of the land of Israel, right? Like
right.
The nation, right? You'd have a paper called the Nation. So Haaretz is like that.
Right. It's another word for Zion in a way, right? So
yeah. But Haaretz is quite left wing, and they're forever trashing the Israeli government. Yedioth Ahronoth would not be doing that, but they published this, so they were very critical of the government in this particular story. But you'll see later on that they don't really have a. Sometimes they aren't. Maybe. There were concerns that Israel would seek the death penalty. The only time Israel has ever killed someone judicially, and you'll notice I use the word judicially there, was Adolf Eichmann. You remember that case?
Yes.
An unrepentant architect of the Holocaust, an absolute prick who I did not feel bad when they killed him. In 1962, who was executed for genocide and crimes against humanity, perhaps ironically. The last time a death sentence was handed down but later commuted was against John Demjanjuk in 1988, who was a notorious concentration camp guard, also for war crimes and crimes against humanity. Lucky for Vanunu, Mossad director Shabtai Shavit said execution was considered but rejected because Jews don't do that to other Jews.
Okay.
At this stage, he was a Christian, but we leave that out. ethnically he's a Jew. He's a
Sure. Yeah.
Sephardic Jew.
Right.
In March 1988, Vanunu was sentenced to 18 years in prison. He served 11 of those years in solitary confinement, permanent solitary confinement for 11
What
years.
did they actually find him guilty of? What was the?
They found him guilty of treason and 2 counts of aggravated espionage.
Okay.
I mean, he was guilty of those, like.
Yeah, they don't have whistleblower laws.
The question is whether or not you should do anything about it, you know?
Yeah.
No, I would say. But yeah, if you're going to phrase it like that, then yeah. 2 appeals for better conditions in 1990 and 1991 were rejected by the Israeli Supreme Court. But in 1998, he was released from solitary confinement into what they call the GenPop, the general prison population.
How did he fare there, do we know?
You what?
How did he fare?
Fine.
Good.
In fact, according to the first sentence of my following paragraph, he turned out to be a formidable inmate.
Oh.
This man cannot be broken. For a guy that you would think was a kind of a little nerd in the back, he was made of steel. That year, he applied to have his Israeli citizenship revoked.
Oh, wow.
But the Israeli government refused because it is a violation of international law, which is true, to denaturalize somebody who has no other citizenship. Oh, lads, now you care about international law, lads.
Yeah.
Oh, no. Now we're hearing about it. Are you aware that international law exists? Are you? Anyway, he was denied parole because he refused to agree to never talk about Dimona to anyone ever again, which was one of his conditions of parole, and he refused to abide by it. He said, I'll tell who everybody I want. Who everybody I want, I will tell. He insisted on only reading English language books and only watched the BBC, refusing the Hebrew language materials available.
Wow.
He became more and more disgusted with the entire Zionist project.
Well, they've turned him. You know, he was, I mean, he was already mortified whenever he realized what his government was doing, and then
he was Mordechai.
Yeah, and then they turned around and they made it in real time. Oh, you like this kind of shit? We're going to do it to you now. Gee, see how that worked out for you. Wow, yeah.
He never broke under constant Shin Bet interrogation. Now, they would not have interrogated the same as they do the Palestinians because he's Jewish, but he never broke under constant Shin Bet interrogation. And shortly before his release in 2004, during one of these interrogation sessions, he said, I am neither a traitor nor a spy. I only wanted the world to know what was happening. And he also said during one of these sessions, we do not need a Jewish state. There needs to be a Palestinian state.
Wow.
Now, so he's been released in 2004, right?
I'm surprised they didn't kill him on the spot when he said that shit.
Well,
yeah.
They don't want to do that because he's Jewish. If he was not a Jew, I think they would have killed him.
Probably, yeah.
But they have these things.
Yeah.
Zionists,
Yep.
The Israelis put many onerous conditions on his release that amounted to a house arrest, including refusing permission to travel outside Israel or speak with any foreigner. He wasn't allowed to talk to any foreign person. He was also banned, which, in Israel is everybody, spoiler alert to the next episode. Anyway, he was also banned from coming within 500 yards of any airport or border crossing and 100 yards of any embassy. He was banned from using the internet. Israeli authorities justified these ridiculous restrictions on the basis that he still has information that can further damage the state of and security interest of Israel. When the revelations first appeared in the Sunday Times, however, these same authorities assured us all that Vanunu was a minor technician with limited knowledge of the reactor's operations, and anything he had to say was worthless. In 2009, he was nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize.
Wow.
In response, on his own website, which has since been deleted, the entire website's gone now, he said, I am asking the committee to remove my name from the list of this year's list of nominations. I cannot be a part of a list of laureates that includes Shimon Peres, the president of Israel. Who was prime minister before. He is the man who was behind all the Israeli atomic policy. Peres established and developed the atomic weapons program in Dimona in Israel. That's not true. Peres was the man who ordered the kidnapping of me in Italy, Rome. That is true. And for the secret trial and sentencing of me as a spy and traitor for 18 years in isolation in prison. That's not true. He spent 11 of 18 years in isolation in prison in Israel. Until now, he continues to oppose my freedom and release. That's true. In spite of serving my full sentence of 18 years. True. For all these reasons, I don't want to be nominated, and I will not accept this nomination. I say no to any nomination as long as I am not free. That is, as long as I am still forced to be in Israel. What I want is freedom and only freedom. Right? He said Peres kicked off the atomic weapons program. That's not true. That was done in the 1960s.
Who deleted the website, him or somebody else?
Oh, it must have been somebody else.
Okay, I didn't know. I'm just curious.
He also said he spent 18 years in isolation. He didn't. He spent 11 years in isolation, and then he was in Gen Pop for 7. I don't know why. He just made a mistake, I guess. He's obviously. If I was that angry at Perez, I might throw him under the bus as well. So
Let's also be fair. There might be a bit of psychosis by this point. I mean,
in him, no, I've seen no sign. He seems to be coherent the whole time.
okay, I'm just saying, prison does shit to you, and if you're in solitary for that long,
Yeah,
you know what I
he
mean?
seems completely together.
Okay. I mean,
Anything I've seen of him, he seems together. People say he's completely normal.
okay. I'm
Interviews.
just things sometimes can get conflated. So I mean,
Oh, he maybe got confused for a while. I don't know.
yeah. I mean, I think you have to give a little bit of, you know what I mean. So
But I'm not going to lie and say he didn't say it. I'm telling you, this is what he said. So
yeah, right. I'm trying to say possible reasons why he said it.
yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
I don't think he lied intentionally.
Sure.
He applied for political asylum to Norway and Sweden and Ireland, but all of them refused on the grounds that asylum applications cannot legally be processed in absentia, which is true. Under international law, if you want asylum in a country, you cannot apply for asylum from somewhere else.
Yeah.
That's just an international law thing. So
yeah.
now we suddenly find ourselves caring about international law.
Yeah, that sounds kind of problematic in itself too.
Ireland has never given any asylum to anybody who didn't land in the country.
Yeah.
And I think every country is the same. You can't apply to get political asylum in Ireland from Nigeria, no matter what kind of a situation you're in. It's up to you to get here first, which is rough, but, that's the way it is.
Oh, my country now, as long as it's a white country, then, you're okay.
White South Africans are the real victims, yeah.
Right, yeah.
In 2015, stories appeared in Yediot Ahronoth that he was somehow feeding bomb-making information to Hamas, or as the Zionists call it, Hamas, to Hamas. Sure. These obviously bullshit stories were coincidentally published around the same time Vanunu was making his 8th legal challenge to the restrictions on his release, to his house arrest. This challenge, like all the others, failed in the High Court. So he was not feeding bomb-making information to Hamas in 2015, I promise you. All right. Throughout this time, he has been detained and arrested many times by various Israeli law enforcement agencies for various crimes and breaches of the conditions of his release, mostly for speaking to foreigners, which he refuses to stop doing. On some occasions, he's been jailed and once again placed in solitary confinement during this period of house arrest. It appears that the biggest threat, and this is me being a sarky, it appears that the biggest threat to Israel does not come from Hamas or Iran, but one man and the truth. In 2021, satellite photos revealed that, well, now we can get to that picture there that's on, oh, you knew already, never mind. Hey, that's a photo I took off Google Maps last night. Okay? In 2021, satellite photos, that's not a 2021, that's a 2025 photo. Satellite photos revealed that major construction work was going on at Dimona, although for what reason no one knows, and the Israelis refused to share any information about it. Jeffrey Lewis, and this is his actual job title, Jeffrey Lewis, a professor of non-proliferation studies, said, and quote, if you're Israel and you're going to have to undertake a major construction project at Dimona that will draw attention, that's probably the time you want to scream about the Iranians. End quote.
Oh, wow. That's interesting.
In 2024, which some of you will remember.
Well, they always scream about the Iranians, as we joked before. So
we joked about it before. In 2024, and you may remember 2024 as
a very good year. No, it wasn't a very good year.
Where a year that the JIB podcast was active.
Yeah.
Vanunu posted this on his Twitter account. July 2024, they have renewed all the restrictions. My next post will be from Freedom only. See you in Freedom.
Oh.
That account has since been deleted.
Oh.
Any access he has to the outside world will be cut by the Israelis.
Oh.
The Mossad agent known as Cindy has reverted to her name of Cheryl Hanin. She is currently working as a real estate agent in Florida, and according to a friend of hers, she just wants to live a nice, quiet life.
Oh, that's nice.
That is what I have to say, a quick rundown on the Israeli nuclear weapons program, and in particular a wonderful man called Mordechai Vanunu, who we have not heard the last from.
Hopefully
from whom we have not heard the last.
Hopefully not, right? I mean, goddamn, what a story. Hopefully that guy gets the fuck out of Israel while I can.
He's not allowed.
Well, maybe in the confusion of all the bombs going back and forth, he can.
Maybe.
Jesus Christ, that's fucked up.
It's pretty bad.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he's still under house arrest after 18 years of jail. Now he's under house arrest right now while we're talking. Free Mordechai Vanunu, I guess, like Leonard Peltier, right?
Yeah.
Free Mordechai Vanunu.
Yeah, that should be a hashtag.
It is.
Should make that happen. It is?
Yeah, it is.
Already is? Awesome.
Amnesty International is forever sending letters to the government saying this man is a political prisoner. You can't do this to people.
Yeah.
And they
Fantastic.
say, oh, we can't release him because he has sensitive information. I think he's given all the sensitive information he has.
Yeah,
to
it's all fucking out there, bro.
Yeah, he's already
Fuck
served
off.
his time for that. Yeah,
They just don't want the fact that they'll have to face the music.
No, he has to be publicly humiliated.
Yeah,
that's the point of this: publicly humiliated and debased. That is what the point of this is. It's nothing to do with his crime. His crime has been paid for by 18 years of 11 out of it that in solitary confinement. This is now a public humiliation exercise.
Ugh.
They're vicious. Zionists are vicious.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's it.
Awesome.
How do you feel?
Disgusted, but I kind of figured I was going to be happy.
That means we don't have what's new. We don't have what's new. We'll have to leave it for the next show. That's it. That's my show. And now you know about Mordechai Vanunu if you didn't before. Very interesting man. Very interesting story. The Israelis have about 150 to 200 nukes.
Awesome.
That's the TLDR. And they're talking about Israel. We can't let Iran have nuclear. That's fucking shit is what it is. Anyway, a photo there. I know this is after the show, but you can still throw it up.
Shit.
The blue one. Do you see the blue one?
Hold on, I have to bring it back up. Give me a second.
I didn't manage to shove it in, but I can shove it in now.
That's what she said.
There's 90 nuclear warheads. Probably that's what she said. Yeah, that's 90 nuclear warheads. There's all the countries of the Middle East with nuclear warheads. None of them, the rest of them have. Well, there's only one, Israel. And I can get rid of it now. So if you want to worry about nuclear warheads in a Middle East country, I know where to point the scorn there.
Yep.
That's it.
Yeah. Any other country who has done what they've done would have been, it would have been what happened in Nazi Germany, right?
Mm.
Their infrastructure, everything would have been seized. It would have been an international takeover.
Yeah.
Just everybody would have been hung. I mean, it'd be Nuremberg all over again. So, although I think we'll never have a Nuremberg because Chomsky pointed out that pretty much every president post WW2, actually even including WW2, if you include Truman, they'd all be hung too. So
using the same standards.
Yeah,
he's right about that.
Yeah, and it's not just America. I mean, the UK and other nations too. But
all we talk about in this podcast is the CIA and the FBI.
Yeah.
By God, I told you if we ever decided to talk about England or France, man, I've been itching to do French stuff.
Dude, we could absolutely fucking
no. I'm going to do CIA stuff, and when I've exhausted that well, I'm going to talk to you about France.
We could do jib jabs. We could do jib jabs of that.
Jib jabs is about people.
Yeah, but you could still do things that involve that.
Show me the shirt.
Oh, I've worn this before.
Oh, the redacted, brilliant. Yeah, brilliant. Yeah. So I guess thanks for watching our show, and I hope you liked it, and I hope you learned something.
Well, you have a CIA next week, right?
If you like, yeah.
Well, I mean, it's that or, man, I hate to even tease this. You've asked for it, and I'm probably going to do it. Something related to it, anyways.
Okay.
You have asked for
Lavender 3.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm
not going to call it Lavender 3, but it's definitely lavender related. It's almost a Lavender 3, but I feel
I'm going to call it Lavender 3.
I know you. But, all right, we'll see y'all in 2 weeks with something hopefully a little bit fun. I don't know. I love you.
It'll be fun.
Bye.